Islamic commercial banks are financial intermediary institutions, and they do exactly the same function of financial intermediation, that is taking the surplus from the surplus units and giving it to the deficit unit. This is their job. You don't ask them to do another job, to assign investment in the society. This is not their job. Their job is only that financial intermediation, not to make development, not to take risk. They should minimize risk because they do financial intermediation on wakala basis. So the problem is not really from this angle, not in Islamic banks, and there is no gap in that sense between theory and practice. There is no gap at all. There is a gap between what you thought they should have done and their reality, because you don't understand their reality. This is one. Now, there is a gap, but the gap is not in that area. The gap is coming in another area, which is invented by some of the, I am sorry to say it, and I am always blunt, and I'm going to say it in a blunt way, by crooked Sharia scholars who gave fatwa that are completely wrong and in violation of the principles and the text and the rulings of Sharia on all levels, even on the minute levels. They are wrong, awfully wrong, completely wrong, because they sold their religion for money. Now, these are the tawarruq fatwa, the fatwa on ina, on cash for an amount of debt of a higher amount, the fatwa on let's change the name of interest into a gift, a hiba, the fatwa of tawarruq. That is a gap that is taking Islamic banks from the expected reality according to the Islamic financial intermediation principles into a gap, into a mimic of conventional banks. Thanks God, this process of becoming mimic of conventional banks has not taken full-fledged action yet. We still are reserved on most of the moral applications, except for some of these newly invented violations, like it's okay to finance companies that discriminate against women or use child labor, or it's okay to finance weapons. And we always have been saying that financing weapons is wrong, because weapons in our days, in the world of today, are in the hands of crooked people, people who kill innocent people under different names, like Bin Laden or like Mansfield and George Bush. So the idea then is we have some kind of deviation from the theory, but not in the area you referred to. Thank you very much.
I have to differ, of course, as usual, from Professor Monzakaf. Of course, he's my teacher, I have the right to differ. I think the main source of the problem is the morality that we understand. The morality that we see Islamic banks articulating what we call instrumental morality. The transaction, whether there's a fair transaction, whether the transactions are independent and etc. That's a legal matter. That's not a morality matter. Morality is beyond that, beyond the legality, what we call substantive morality. So when it comes to substantive morality, now the question is whether organizations should have substantive morality. But substantive morality for organizations is articulated in different ways. As we can see in the global area, beyond Islamic finance, the financial institutions are expected as well. They brought back objectives in terms of sustainability, but at the same time, ESG's ethical, social, and governance expectations. Now, these are conventional banks. We have been criticizing them being profit-oriented. yes, these banks are now signing for such objectives. Why? That's the substantive morality. Now, we go back to Islamic finance, or Islamic banks for that matter. Yes, they are commercial, they are financial intermediary, and etc. And I'm taking out the Islamic moral expectations. Okay, that's, I'm taking out, just as commercial banks. Why they cannot internalize the sustainability issues, ESG issues, and etc. That's the question mark that we have to ask. How come a conventional bank can be more sustainable oriented, more green oriented, more ethical, but Islamic banks cannot be? And that's an important question. When I have been always giving that great example, unfortunately I couldn't give today, the Zamzam Towers, financed by Islamic finance, which undermines the entire historicity of the place in Kaaba. Zamzam Tower just in front of the Kaaba. Undermines the historicity of the place, undermines equal opportunities in praying and conducting Islamic activity. And it is, of course, approved by Sharia scholars through Islamic finance. Now, if a global banking institution, had they had the chance of involving in that project, as we have seen in many parts of the world, as well as in Turkey, they would not have undertaken to finance Zamzam Tower. But Islamic finance didn't have problem. Now, the issue, of course, beyond the Islamic moral economic expectations, I'm talking about the substantive morality as being established today for organization. Now, the question why that cannot happen, okay? And that's the issue that we have to pause and we have to understand. So transactional, contractual understanding, the contractual understanding we have, the whole issue that as long as financial contracts are halal, the rest is okay, is problematic. Because so far, the whole idea that as long as intention is right, intention is halal, intention is Sharia compliant, the consequences doesn't matter. That's very partial understanding. And Sharia scholars have been telling us that Islam is intentional. The consequence doesn't matter. Consequentialism, they would tell him, they say, it's a Western philosophy. I would disagree with that, because conducting prayer is an intention, but it is not enough. You are expected to conduct the prayer. Amal Salih, the good deed, has to happen. You cannot just say that I want to be good. No, you have to do the good deed. And in the same way, therefore, intention has to go together with consequences. And that is what we call a substantive morality. Therefore, just saying that I approve this project, and therefore, khalas, it's finished there. Okay? No, that's not enough. We have to look into it. How come Islamic finance sponsored or Islamic finance involving projects? We see in the Gulf the treatment of expatriates, foreign workers. Is that acceptable? These are important questions. And on top of that, of course, why this is missing, why they cannot do ESG, sustainability, and etc., is that morality, the substantive morality. They only focus on instrumental morality, and that is not enough. That's a legal issue, because when I go to the market in Sakarya, that's an instrumental morality is there. I'm in free transaction. But what makes the difference on top of that, that's the proactivity and that's the substantive morality. So we have failed in developing a substantive morality understanding. The legal, rational legal understanding of Sharia, entirely legal and rational understanding, unfortunately doesn't allow us to develop this, what you refer to as the social consequences, and that's an important issue. On top of that, of course, when we do not have the Islamic moral economy as a framework, of course, it does well. But these are, either we have to resign to the fact that these are commercial rights, they work that way, and we shouldn't ask the Islamicity, even though they carry the Islamic name, or we have to find ways, and therefore civil society is important. Civil society has to force. In the West, the development of ethical financing has been due to responding to the demand from civil society. Muslim communities, Muslim individuals have to show their responsiveness. But of course, unfortunately, the way we have developed ourselves, the great respect we have Sharia scholars, we think that they have Sharia legitimacy. Unfortunately, as Professor Kaf was mentioning, if someone giving fatwa on that ground, that person cannot have Sharia legitimacy. And that is the civil society, as part of civil society, we have to understand that they do not all of them have Sharia legitimacy. And that is something that we have to develop. We have to organize civil society to force Islamic banks to be more social and socially oriented. And that civil society has to take that responsibility. We cannot just expect organizations to change. And then, of course, my usual criticism of Islamic law. Thank you.
Okay, we are out of time, but we can get one more question. After that, we have the best paper award presentation.
Çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Ben de düzenleme komitesinden bir dostumuz olarak Mehmet Asutay Hoca'ya bir soru soracağım ama soru soruyormuş gibi yapıp birkaç da noktayı paylaşacağım müsaade ederseniz. Sabrı zorlayabilirim Şakir Hocam birazcık. Özellikle bu oturum boyunca, 3 gün boyunca biz İslam ekonomisi ve finans başlığımızın ekonomi ayağını oldukça fakir, yoksul tuttuk diye düşünüyorum. Bilmem katılır mısınız? Yine pratiğin icbar etmesiyle, zorlamasıyla finans odaklı ve finans yoğun söyleşiler, tebliğler ve tartışmalar yaptık. Maalesef tartışmaların birçoğunu derinleştirme imkanı bulamadık birçok kongrede olduğu gibi. Temel soru şu muydu? Pazar payı İslami finansın giderek büyüyor. Büyüyor, daha fazla nasıl büyütebiliriz? Dünyadaki mevcut bu pastadan ne kadar daha fazla pay alabiliriz miydi? Yoksa ikinci biçimde bu büyüme Müslümanca bir dünya görüşü ve toplumsal ideal açısından meşru muydu? Yani kaygılarımız sanki bu iki soruyu da içerir biçimde gündeme geldi hemen her oturumda. Ben burada acizane modernitenin kirlettiği zihinlerimizi temizlemekle işe başlamamız gerektiğini düşünüyorum. Birinci adım olarak. Asutay Hocam özür dileyerek son bıraktığımız yerden sivil toplum kavramsallaştırması da dahil olmak üzere Batı düşünsel paradigmasının ürettiği bütün kavramsallaştırmaları ve analiz biçimlerini, bu analizler sırasında kullanılan aletleri yeniden gözden geçirmeye ihtiyacımız olduğunu düşünüyorum. Bu bakımdan aslında çok haklı olarak işaret ettiğiniz, sunumunuzda da işaret ettiğiniz, beni ümitlendiren yeni bir ontolojik algının, daha doğrusu kadim, Müslümanca bir ontolojik algının ve buradan türetilen bir epistemolojinin gerekliliğine işaret etmek istedim. Bu epistemolojiyi kurmak gereğini hepimiz söylüyoruz, dile getiriyoruz ama ne yazık ki bu konuda yeterli çabayı ortaya koyabildiğimizi düşünmüyorum. Bu bizim zayıf karnemiz. Teorik inşa eksikliğini vurguluyoruz ama bu her çabaya kalkıştığımızda da bazı ayet ve hadisleri refere ederek, referans alarak batılı formları ve kavramsallaştırma ve analiz biçimlerini kullanmakta hala ısrar ediyoruz. Bu noktada acaba modern ekonomi teorisinin bugünkü başarısı, ki zaman zaman maalesef İslam dünyasının Müslüman düşünürleri de buna öykünüyor zannediyorum. Biraz böyle bir kompleksi de taşıyoruz zaman zaman. Egemen küresel sistemin düşünsel yapımızda da bir egemenlik kurduğunu ifade etmeye çalışıyorum. Bu modern ekonomi teorisinin başarısının bir eseri midir karşımızdaki dünya? Eğer bu bir başarıysa, bu başarı, tırnak içinde başarı ya da başarısızlık, ürettiği pek çok problemle beraber, derinleşen yoksulluk, adaletsizlik, sömürgecilik ve sömürgeciliğin yeni biçimleri, haksız işgaller, katliamlar, bütün bunları da işin içine dahil ettiğimizde modern düşünsel inşanın ve bunun özel bir parçası olarak iktisat teorisi inşasının masum ve başarılı bir teori olduğunu söyleyebilir miyiz? Başarıysa bu nasıl bir başarıdır? Bu noktada belki de pratik teoriyi biraz şekillendirmiş oluyor diye düşünüyorum. Toparlıyorum Şakir Hocam. Yani nasıl klasik, neoklasik paradigma bir tıkanma yaşadığında 1929 krizinden sonra Keynes yolundan çıkan, rayından çıkan treni rayına oturttuysa ve bu Keynesyen teoriyi bizim literatüre taşımamızı ve okumamızı, okutmamızı gerekli kıldıysa, eğer böyle olduysa pratik sanki teorik yapıyı inşa ediyor diyebilir miyiz bir bakıma? Bugün içinde yaşadığımız şu kavramsallaştırma ve İslam ekonomisi ve finansının teorik inşası ile ilgili gayretlerimiz acaba biraz da pratiğin zorlamasıyla mı oluyor? Bu zorlama sırasında biz modern iktisat paradigmasının, küresel kapitalizmin bir tür illüzyon olduğunu acaba fark edemiyor muyuz? Gözden mi kaçırıyoruz? Eğer bir teorik inşa olacaksa kendi kelimelerimizle, ıstılahlarımızla ve kendi düşünme biçimlerimizle bu inşayı gerçekleştirmeli değil miyiz? Bu arada, bu noktada asr-ı saadetten bugüne sıçrarken derin bir tarihsel boşluğu ve eksperiment, yani deneyleri atlıyor muyuz acaba diye düşünüyorum. Bu noktada tarihsel tecrübe bu teorik inşaya katkı sunacaksa bu konuda daha ciddi ve daha verimli çalışmalara ihtiyacımız yok mu diyorum. Son olarak önceliklerimiz kadar, varsayımlarımız kadar vardığımız hedeflerin de farklılaşması gerektiğini düşünüyorum. Söz gelimi Karz-ı Hasen'in, karşılıksız borç vermenin, borcu ertelediğinizde karşı tarafa ilave bir maliyet yüklememenin sizce ne tür bir nicel karşılığı, sayısal karşılığı vardır? Kalkınma ve büyüme hedeflerimizi de bu bakımdan tekrar tartışmaya açmak isterim. Özellikle Asutay Hocam'a ifade ederek söylüyorum bunu. Yani bizim hedeflerimiz dünya ve ahiret dengesini gözeten çift taraflı bir, farklı bir muhasebe algısını da gerektirmiyor mu dünyaya sunacağımız bu teklif? Yani zaman zaman ekonomik karlılığa, faydaya ya da verimliliğe, büyümeye, zenginliğe odaklanmadan da bir takım maliyetleri yüklenerek de Müslümanca bir teklifimiz olduğunu dünyaya söyleyemeyecek miyiz diyorum. Yani biz kar ve fayda maksimizasyonuna dayalı bir yönelim içinde olmamalıyız diyoruz sıklıkla. Ama hala finans kurumlarımız özellikle karlılıktan taviz vermeden İslami bir kurumu var edeceğini ve sürdüreceğini iddia ediyor. Yani bu sanıyorum Karz-ı Hasen gibi bereket kavramımızı, söz gelimi, fadlallah kavramını, bütün bunları yeniden sayısal değerlere dökülmeyen bu kavramları yeniden gündeme taşıyarak bir teklif hazırlamalı değil miyiz dünyaya? Teşekkür ediyorum. Bağışlayın, uzun oldu biraz. Bir korsan tebliğ olmuş oldu.
We have to start a workshop on this. And I was talking to colleagues, perhaps in addition to conferences, we have to have workshops. And workshops, then we can detail and discuss these issues. As the first issues, what you have raised, they are my problems, and they are my issues, and I have been discussing these issues. But what I see, the problematization that you have put forward, I think it's as old as the whole whether Muslim world should modernize or not, whether westernize or not. It goes back to that, unfortunately. But what we have seen, the emergence of social sciences in the Muslim world, I have great respect to Ismail Raja Farki and Islamization of knowledge, but the problem that we have in front of us, that modernist approach. The modernist approach, unfortunately, very pragmatistically, they thought that if we transform institutions, and the first thing I tried to show a graph. Okay, the institutions of the secular ontology transferred into the Islamic ontology through fiqh. As long as we provide fiqh justification, then the result will be accepted. And sometimes I joke with my students. I tell them that in the morning you are using the washing machine at home. Do you think that is acceptable because it's a product of a different ontology? I mean, that is a very radical, but just to force students to think. And I mean, that's an important issue when it comes to bank as well. I go all over the world and I ask people whether they have a particular word for bank in their language. No one has it. Okay? Look at it. In Turkish we call it bank, in Arabic, and etc. All these languages that we have, we call the bank as it is. Yes, no bank is it. Not necessarily. Ontologically, the construct is not necessary. Anyway, I don't want to dispute. Okay, in Arabic apparently there is one. I don't want to dispute, but yeah, I don't think. Anyway, so it is entirely transformed. And when it is transformed, of course, you bring the problems of that institution. Bank, by definition, works for financialization. By definition, it's a commercial bank working for definition, financialization. And you bring financialization to Islam. They will justify it through Islam. And therefore, I think the great effort, okay, Muslim world need economic growth and etc., which I fully agree. And therefore, perhaps that should happen, which is happening, and Islamic banking growing. But at the same time, by referring to what you were saying, post-colonial mind has to come up as our responsibility, as a double movement, to look into how we can reconstruct things. And when I say reconstruct, not borrowing from the different ontology, but within our own ontology, how we can authenticate, and how we can develop the concepts so that we can run the societies. And I'm not using effective or efficiently, but run societies so that what Professor Kaf was referring, how ihsan can be essentialized, how individual fella and societal ihsan can be expanded in the society, so that what Professor Schiller says when he got the Nobel Prize, the good society, the society of ihsan, how it can go. And therefore the objective, as you were referring, what is the objective? Utility maximization, profit maximization. That is not the case. We have to look at how ihsan can be expanded, distributed in the society. And therefore that requires entirely a different theoretical formulation according to the knowledge that we have. Now, by referring to that, of course, historically there are experiments. But sometimes we become very, I'm a romantic, but sometimes when we look at history, it's too romantic as well. Everyone gives the example of Umar bin Abdulaziz and the zakat and etc. But Umar bin Abdulaziz, may Allah bless his soul, he was in reign, what, 2-3 years, and we are talking about 1,500 years of Muslim history. And that's the realities we have. And therefore, we have to look into conceptualize one theoretically, two institutions, and three the behavioral norms. Okay, Ibn Khaldun did a great work, but he observed the societies. What we are referring, deductively constructing. And historically, when we look at experiments and the contributions, they are inductive, unfortunately. They looked at, there isn't anything wrong with that. I know Professor Kaf in particular very passionate about Ibn Khaldun, locating Ibn Khaldun and economics, but that observes society and construct, as you were saying. So when we look at this, what happened? The petrodollars. Now you had to halalize it. Islamic banks had to do that. That's a very inductive approach of doing things. But on the other hand, you have an ontology. Ontology tells you that you have to pray. You don't see people pray and therefore you are praying. You pray because you were told to pray. And therefore, there's an inductive relationship as well. Yes, horizontal is necessary, but the inductive. And therefore, this requires an entirely new understanding how to conceptualize it. Now, the issue, of course, when we say all these things, the first question, how realistic it is. I mean, this question of realism, it is important, of course. The societies have to continue, societies have to grow, societies have to develop. But sometimes we have to understand that something different can be done as well. And that doesn't have to be taken up by the entire society. I understand your remarks on civil society. I do not mean in that context, but Islamically, when you look at the whole institution of iftar in the Muslim world, historically, the Sharia scholars, their relationship with the people, okay, what I call civil society, in that sense, that relationships, that kind of society. So it can be in a civil society, it can be practiced by a number of people. It doesn't have to be. I mean, I went to Indonesia. There are quite interesting experiments are taking place in Indonesia in the what I call the civil society. So it doesn't have to be realistically the entire state running it. No, Islam started a community of people. So therefore, I think we are very much obsessed with the modernist ideals of state running these ideals. No, it doesn't happen, and it doesn't have to happen. But we have to create a new imagination. And that imagination, yes, some of us can work in Islamic banking and continue to develop that, accumulate capital. Society might continue with that, but importantly, we shouldn't lose the sight of constructing something new. And that has always happened, that through that, the knowledge has developed. Modernity said that this is the end of history. God has died. No, God has come back. Constructing again. Postmodernism has arisen, and etc. So therefore, the stagnation in the Muslim thinking and submission to the existence and the pragmatism and the reality is, it doesn't help to move forward. Therefore, our objective in your program, my program, the programs all over the world, we have to look into, yes, on the other hand, the students come to our programs, they have to go and work in the bank, but whether we can give them a different imagination, and whether that imagination can at least alter their life. But in our research, we have to also look into how this new conceptualization can be developed, and so that the promise that I call the promise can be fulfilled. But hopefully we can discuss all this in more detail.
Thank you. In as much as I agree with Dr. Asutai on what he said, I still have a problem in charging a tool more than what it is for. You cannot charge Islamic commercial banks that job, and you must not charge it. Expecting them to do that is wrong. You need different tools for these other objectives. This is one point. The second point, definitely, I do believe that the criteria of morality is the Sharia and cannot be a thing that is imposed on Sharia from our own minds. For instance, my dear Muhammad repeated twice to the green. Well, we're very much different on what is the definition of green. Now, he did not like the towers. The towers, by the way, Zamzam towers were not financed by banks. They were financed by sukuk, and that is by the public, as a matter of fact, by the civil society, in a sense. So they are not, they are sukuk. Well, we need to realize that Mecca of tomorrow is definitely different than Mecca of yesterday. He hasn't seen yet changes that are inside the Haram. If he goes and sees, I made Hajj several years ago, I'm not going to tell you when. And then I went for Umrah the few months ago. The whole scenery is different. He will have heart attack if he sees what is going on inside the Haram, not outside, not Zamzam towers. But this is the vision of tomorrow, that he cannot limit his thinking to the past. He wants to limit tomorrow to the past. Tomorrow is going to be different. It's for our children, not for us. Thank you very much.
Not in the Las Vegas of Mecca.
Maybe even in Mecca. It's going to be different.
I close the session. I thank all of you to join this conference. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept for our good deeds. Now there is a best paper presentation. Also, I thank all of the guests to join.
Well, I'm sure all you are happy that we have come to the end. And I enjoy always my debate with Professor Kaf, he's my teacher, and that gives me the legitimacy to disagree with him. When I did my first course in Islamic finance in 1993, he was there teaching me. So, important that we have the agreement of the disagreement, and I'm happy with that. Well, I hope you have enjoyed so far, and I know you are all tired, But thank you for staying alive with us and continuing with us. One of the objectives of this conference was at the same time look into how knowledge development can be contributed. As I agree, unfortunately, the papers on Islamic economics is terribly limited, not only in this conference, but all over the world, because we are too lazy to work on conceptual issues. We are realistic, and therefore we want to publish, and therefore we want to have empirical papers. Nothing wrong with empiricity, we have to do that, but at the same time it would be good if we put more effort on conceptual and theoretical developments, in particular in Islamic economics. Having said that, there were some criteria and some categories. There were the best papers, and the prizes with that. It was agreed that in each category, one paper will get the best paper and will receive $500 US. I understand that the sponsorship is provided by the Association of Turkish Participation Banks, and we are grateful for their contribution for knowledge development for that purpose. So the categories were Islamic banking, Islamic finance, Islamic economics, and fiqh muamalat. The committee went through the papers in terms of the criteria that we established initially. One is the conceptual framework, and then the argument development, how the argument is developed, analytical approach, methodology and modeling, empirical process, and interpreting the results. Of course, it's very difficult to establish or locate all these features in each paper, but we looked at each paper in terms of its strength as well, in terms of methodology and modeling, and whether the empirical process has been run efficiently and effectively, and therefore, in the end, we came up with 3 papers. Unfortunately, in the fiqh category, I'm not a fiqh person, so it's not my responsibility, but colleagues who are specialized. They looked at and I couldn't find any paper which can be qualified as the best paper in this conference. So the ones that we have, one in Islamic banking, and that goes to the paper titled as Technical Efficiency and Stability to Shocks, a comparison between Islamic banks and conventional banks in MENA region. It's a heavily technical paper, entirely empirical, and it is written by Professor Mohammed Shafai from University of Sfax, Tunisia. I don't know whether Professor Shafai is here, so we can present him the prize. The second paper is on Islamic finance, and we looked at the Islamic finance paper in terms of, again, the originality, and we thought that, thank you very much. One of the papers, we thought it got our attention in terms of trying to do something different. The paper title is The Chicago Plan from the Lenses of Islamic Finance, Implications for Financial Stability and Indebtedness, mainly trying to essentialize risk-sharing deposits, safekeeping, and prohibition of debt financing. The paper is jointly contributed by Tarek Akan and Mohammed Habib Dolgun. Apparently they are PhD candidates at ICISEF. I don't know whether colleagues are here. Yeah? And the third paper is on Islamic economics. Unfortunately, we had very limited papers, but two papers in particular got our attention in terms of trying to do something new, trying to infuse some Islamic understanding. One of them was very much trying to infuse Islam into a particular model. The other one perhaps was more something new, something more original, and something within the ontology, trying to create something ontology. Therefore, we went for that paper. It's the agent-based modeling of the macroeconomic behavior of Sharia-compliant companies. So we thought this multi-agent modeling paper is rather a good effort in terms of trying to conceptualize something, a new imagination, and therefore we thought Professor Mohammed Tikwat and Dr. Khatija Al-Hachami, both from the University of Mohammed V, Agdal, Rabat, and Morocco. I don't know whether they are here. Okay. Thank you, Khatija. Dr. Khatija. We thought that this was a good contribution, and we wanted to appreciate the attempt. I think with that, I finished my session. Thank you very much for everyone. We have been great in terms of keeping me alive and getting the debate one step further. Indeed, there are plenty of things to do in Islamic banking and finance, economics, management, and etc. But these are efforts, and we have to remember, although we are very critical and etc., this is an industry as well as the thinking is only 30, 40, 50 years. So that's the reality that we have to consider. Hopefully we can all work together. One of the important issues, of course, the conferences, it brings us together to exchange ideas, establish networks, and this is a social capital that we can hopefully utilize. That communication that we develop here, we can take it further and hopefully